The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent. War Marshal Krextel stood at the center of the chamber, his massive form casting shadows across the polished floor. His red eyes glowed with confidence as he looked around at the hundreds of alien representatives sitting in their curved seats. "We, the Zephyrian Empire, will take the planet called Earth," he announced. His voice echoed through the vast space. "Our fleet moves in 7 days." The silence stretched on. Ambassador Veltar from the Centauri Federation was the first to speak. His blue skin had turned pale. "Marshal, do you know what you are saying?" Krextal laughed, a harsh sound that made several smaller aliens flinch. "I am saying we will claim what is ours by right of strength. Earth sits on the largest quantum-fold crystal deposits in the galaxy. We need those crystals for our new weapons." Old Counselor Thane from the Rigel system slowly stood up. His ancient voice shook as he spoke. "Marshal, Earth is under quarantine. It has been forbidden to approach that system for 500 years. "Yes, we know." Krextal waved his clawed hand dismissively. "Old fears from weak species. You put a few warnings around one small planet and act like it holds some great danger. We are not afraid of primitive humans." The chamber erupted in worried whispers. Delegates turned to each other with wide eyes. Some were already reaching for their communication devices to contact their homeworlds. Ambassador Zelnara from the Polaris Union stood up, her crystalline form catching the light. "Marshal, the quarantine exists for good reasons. The records clearly state that Earth is classified as a Class X restricted zone." "Records can lie," Krextal snarled. "We have studied this planet from a distance. We see one world with some defensive satellites. We see ships that use old technology. We see a species that has barely left their home system. What threat could they possibly be to the mighty Zephyrian Empire?" Counselor Morden, whose people had been part of the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years, tried once more. "Marshal, perhaps you should review the historical files before making this decision." The quarantine was not placed lightly. Krextal's laugh was even louder this time. "We have reviewed what files we could access. Most are sealed or classified beyond our clearance level. What we could read spoke of a brief conflict 5 centuries ago. One battle. One quick defeat of some coalition. How does that justify eternal fear?" "Because," whispered Ambassador Kelthas from the Vega Collective, "those who fought that battle are still too scared to speak of it." The Marshal's confidence never wavered. "Fear makes cowards of the weak." "We are not weak. We have the largest fleet in the Outer Rim. Our weapons can crack planets. Our shields can stop any attack. One primitive world cannot stand against us." The head counselor, an ancient being known only as the Moderator, finally spoke from the high platform. "Marshal Krextal, the Galactic Council strongly advises against this action. We vote to formally oppose any invasion of the Sol system." "Your vote means nothing to us," Krextal replied. "We are not asking for permission. We are informing you of our decision as a courtesy. The Zephyrian Empire will take Earth, and there is nothing any of you can do to stop us." Ambassador Veltar tried one last time. "Marshal, at least tell us why you need those crystals so badly. Perhaps we can find an alternative source." Krextal's eyes gleamed with ambition. "We are building the ultimate weapon, a device that can destroy entire star systems with one shot. With quantum-fold crystals from Earth, we will become the supreme power in the galaxy. No one will dare oppose us." The silence that followed was heavy with dread. Every delegate in the chamber understood what this meant. The Zephyrians were not just risking their own destruction. They were threatening to upset the careful balance that had kept peace in the galaxy for centuries. "You are making a terrible mistake," Counselor Thane said quietly. "The only mistake would be showing weakness," Krextal shot back. "We leave for Earth in 7 days. When we return, it will be with enough quantum-fold crystals to build 1,000 superweapons. Then you will all bow before the Zephyrian Empire." He turned and walked toward the exit, his heavy boots clicking on the floor. His escort of Zephyrian soldiers followed behind him. At the door he paused and looked back. "Oh, and when we succeed where others have failed, remember that you had the chance to join us as allies. Instead, you chose to cling to old fears and ancient superstitions. Do not expect mercy when we rule this galaxy." The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. For a long moment, no one in the chamber moved. Then the whispers started again, growing louder and more frantic. "Someone has to warn them," Ambassador Zelnara said. "Warn who?" asked Counselor Morden. "The Zephyrians. They will not listen." "No," she replied. "The humans." Veltar shook his head sadly. "The communication ban has been in effect for 500 years. We have no way to contact Earth. The automated warning beacons around their system only broadcast outward. They do not accept incoming messages. Then what do we do? Asked a young delegate from one of the newer member species. The moderator's voice came from above, ancient and tired. We wait, we hope, and we pray to whatever gods we believe in that the Zephyrians change their minds. What if they do not change their minds? The young delegate pressed. Old Counselor Thane looked up at the ceiling as if he could see through the metal to the stars beyond. Then in 7 days, we will learn whether the quarantine around Earth was meant to protect the galaxy from humans, or to protect humans from us. The chamber slowly emptied as delegates returned to their quarters or rushed to send urgent messages to their homeworlds. Emergency sessions were called. Defense fleets were quietly moved to safer positions. Trade routes were temporarily suspended. But deep in the archives beneath the council station, one figure remained at his post. Archivist Quindal sat before his vast computer systems, his old fingers trembling as he typed access codes into the terminal. He had been keeper of the archives for over 2 centuries. He was one of the few beings alive who remembered the time before the quarantine. The files he sought were buried deep in the most restricted sections of the database. Files that required the highest security clearance. Files that most council members did not even know existed. As the first document opened on his screen, Quindal felt a chill run through his ancient body. The header read, Sol System Incident, Final Report, Eyes Only, Permanent Seal Recommended. He began to read, and with each line, his fear grew stronger. By the time he finished the first page, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely type. He reached for his communication device and sent an urgent message to the moderator. We need an emergency session, now. I have found the real files about Earth. The Zephyrians have no idea what they are about to face. But even as he sent the message, Quindal knew it might already be too late. Somewhere in space, the Zephyrian fleet was already preparing to depart. In 7 days, they would reach Earth, and then the galaxy would remember why some doors should never be opened. Archivist Quindal had not slept in 3 days. His office deep in the council archives was filled with the soft glow of dozens of computer screens. Empty food containers and caffeine tablets littered his desk. His normally neat appearance was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled from hours of sitting in the same position. The emergency council session had been called for the next morning. The moderator had given him unlimited access to the most classified files in the Galactic database. What he was reading made him wish he had never been given such clearance. The first file was a military report from 500 years ago. The header read, Hegemony Fleet Status Report, Sol System Operation. Quindal scrolled through pages of ship specifications and battle plans. The Hegemony had been a coalition of 6 powerful species, including his own people, the Altarians. According to the files, they had detected Earth when humans first achieved faster-than-light travel. The planet was rich in quantum-fold crystals just like the Zephyrians had said, but more than that, it was perfectly positioned to control 3 major hyperspace lanes. Whoever controlled Earth could control trade across half the galaxy. The humans had sent out peaceful messages when they achieved interstellar flight. They wanted to meet other species, to trade and learn. The Hegemony saw this as weakness. They decided to take Earth before humans could establish any real defenses. Quindal opened the next file. Pre-invasion intelligence report. The data showed a planet with about 8 billion humans, scattered across one world and a few small colonies on nearby moons. Their technology was primitive compared to galactic standards. Their largest ships were slow cargo vessels that could barely reach the edge of their own solar system. The Hegemony had laughed at the intelligence reports. How could such a weak species pose any threat? They sent a small fleet of only 50 ships, thinking it would be enough to force a quick surrender. The next file made Quindal's blood run cold. Battle report, Sol System engagement, classified forever. Fleet Admiral Zorketh had commanded the Hegemony force. His report began with confidence. Arrived in Sol System at 800 hours. Human response minimal. Few orbital defense platforms detected. No significant military vessels in range. Proceeding with intimidation protocol as planned. But something had gone wrong almost immediately. The humans did not respond to the Hegemony's demands for surrender. Instead, they had asked for time to consider the terms. Admiral Zorketh had given them 1 hour to decide. During that hour, something impossible had happened. Ships appeared out of nowhere. Not just military vessels, but civilian craft that had been modified with weapons, mining ships carrying nuclear charges, cargo haulers equipped with kinetic weapons, even passenger liners bristling with missile pods. The hegemony fleet found itself surrounded by over 300 human vessels. Admiral Zorketh had sent a message demanding to know where the ships had come from. The human response was recorded in the file. They were always here. You just were not looking in the right places. Quindal opened the tactical analysis section. What he read defied everything he knew about space combat. The humans had not attacked in formation like a normal fleet. Instead, every ship had acted independently, yet somehow they worked together perfectly. They seemed to know exactly where every hegemony ship would move before it moved. The battle itself had lasted only 47 minutes. In that time, 48 hegemony ships were destroyed. 2 were captured. The remaining ships, including Admiral Zorketh's flagship, had been allowed to escape, but only after their weapons and engines were disabled. But the most disturbing part of the report came in the Admiral's personal notes. The humans fought like they were one mind controlling many bodies. They anticipated every move we made. They coordinated attacks from impossible distances without any detectable communication. When we destroyed one of their ships, the others did not mourn or hesitate. They simply adjusted their tactics and continued fighting. Quindal scrolled to the casualty reports. On the hegemony side, 23,000 dead, 8,000 wounded. On the human side, 200 dead. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, the humans had won with minimal losses. The next file was even more terrifying. Post-battle analysis, human combat behavior. The report was written by the hegemony's best military psychologists. They had interviewed the survivors and analyzed combat recordings. Their conclusion was chilling. Humans appear to have evolved a form of collective consciousness during combat situations. Individual humans merge their thoughts and reactions into a larger group mind. This allows for perfect coordination and tactical awareness. Recommend immediate withdrawal from all human territories and establishment of exclusion zone. Quindal found Admiral Zorketh's final report buried deep in the files. I have fought in 17 major battles across 4 decades of service. I have never seen anything like what happened at Earth. We were not defeated by superior technology or greater numbers. We were defeated by something that should not exist. The humans fought like a single organism with 300 bodies. They knew what we would do before we did it. They moved like parts of one vast machine. The Admiral's conclusion was even more disturbing. Recommend permanent quarantine of Sol system. Humans must never be allowed to spread beyond their home world. If they achieve galactic-level technology while maintaining their collective combat abilities, no force in the galaxy could stop them. The final files contained the political aftermath. The hegemony had quietly disbanded within a year of the battle. The 6-member species had agreed to never speak publicly about what happened at Earth. They established the quarantine and classified all records related to the incident. But Quindal found one more document that made his heart race. Human communication intercepts, years 150 post-contact. The file showed that humans had been sending messages to the galactic community for decades after the battle. At first, the messages were confused and hurt. They wanted to know why they were being ignored. They offered trade, technology exchange, and peaceful cooperation. As the years passed, the messages changed. The humans began to understand that they were being deliberately isolated. Their final message, sent 50 years after the battle, was only one line: "We understand now. We will be ready when you return." After that, the humans had gone silent. For 450 years, there had been no messages from Earth. No ships had left their system. The automated warning beacons had been set up, broadcasting the simple message: Sol system under quarantine. Do not approach. The galaxy had been happy to forget about Earth. Trade routes were rerouted. Star maps were updated to show the Sol system as restricted space. New species joining the galactic community were told that Earth was off limits, but not why. Now the Zephyrians were going to find out why. Quindal leaned back in his chair, exhausted. He looked at the time display on his screen. In 4 days, the Zephyrian fleet would reach Earth. He had spent 3 days reading 500 years of classified files, and one thing was clear: The quarantine had not been meant to protect the galaxy from human expansion. It had been meant to protect the galaxy from human retaliation. He opened a new document and began typing his report for the emergency council session. As he wrote, one question kept echoing in his mind. If humans could fight like that 500 years ago with primitive technology, what could they do now after centuries of isolation and preparation? Outside his office, the council station continued its routine operations. Delegates prepared for the emergency session. Ships came and went from the docking bays. Life went on as normal, but Quindal knew that in 4 days everything would change. The Zephyrians were about to wake something that the galaxy had spent 5 centuries trying to forget. He only hoped that when it was over, there would still be a galaxy left to protect. Fleet Commander Zachmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Blade. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the stars beginning to shift back to normal as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace. After 7 days of travel, they had finally reached the Sol system. "Report," he commanded. His navigation officer checked her instruments. "We have arrived at the target coordinates, Commander. All 200 ships are accounted for. No damage from the hyperspace jump." Zachmore nodded with satisfaction. The largest fleet the Zephyrian Empire had ever assembled was now in position around Earth. 200 of their finest warships, each one capable of destroying entire cities with a single volley. The humans would surrender within hours. "Begin scanning the system," he ordered. "I want to know the position of every human ship and defense platform before we make our demands." His sensor officer began working at her station. After a few minutes, she looked up with confusion. "Commander, the initial scans are unusual." "Explain." "We are detecting approximately 50,000 objects in motion throughout the system, but most of them do not match any known ship designs in our database." Zachmore frowned. 50,000 ships? That is impossible. Our intelligence showed humans barely had a few hundred vessels. Sir, I am not sure they are all ships. Some of the objects are massive, much larger than any normal spacecraft. And they are all moving toward our position. The tactical officer spoke up. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission. Audio only. Put it through." A clear, calm voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect Zephyrian, though with a slight accent. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered restricted space. This is your only warning. Leave our system immediately." Zachmore laughed. "Admiral Chen, I am Fleet Commander Zachmore of the Zephyrian Empire. We have come to claim this system and its resources. Your planet is now under our protection. Surrender peacefully and your people will be treated well." There was a pause before the human responded. "Commander, you have made a serious mistake. I strongly advise you to reconsider your position. The only mistake would be resisting the inevitable," Zachmore replied. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. We have 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. What could you possibly do against us?" "You will find out shortly," Admiral Chen said. "Final warning. Leave now." The transmission ended. Zachmore turned to his officers. "Prepare for battle. Launch fighters and charge all weapons. We will show these humans the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire." His sensor officer's voice was shaking. "Commander, I have completed the detailed scan. You need to see this." Zachmore walked over to her station and looked at the display. What he saw made no sense. The screen showed thousands of objects surrounding his fleet. But these were not normal ships. Some were the size of small moons. Others looked like massive rings or spheres. A few appeared to be hollow asteroids with engines attached. "What am I looking at?" he demanded. "Sir, I believe we are seeing human habitats and mining stations that have been converted into warships. That large spherical object to our port side appears to be a generation ship. Its surface is covered with weapon emplacements. The ring-shaped objects look like orbital habitats that have been modified for combat." Zachmore stared at the screen. "You are telling me the humans turned their entire civilization into a weapon?" Before his officer could answer, new contacts appeared on the screen. Hundreds of smaller ships were emerging from what looked like empty space. They had been hidden somehow, invisible to the Zephyrian sensors until now. "Stealth technology," his tactical officer reported. "Advanced stealth technology. These ships were here all along. We just could not see them." Zachmore felt the first hint of doubt creeping into his mind, but he pushed it away. Numbers meant nothing without proper weapons and tactics. "Begin the attack. Target their largest vessels first. Show them the power of Zephyrian technology. His fleet opened fire. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out toward the human ships. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space, each one carrying enough destructive power to level a city. None of them reached their targets. A wall of defensive fire erupted from the human fleet. Thousands of small interceptor missiles destroyed the incoming torpedoes. Energy shields deflected the beam weapons. Point defense systems created a protective barrier around every human vessel. Impossible, Zachmore whispered. No one has defensive systems that advanced. His communications officer looked up. Sir, I am detecting massive energy signatures from the human fleet. They are charging weapons. Zachmore watched in horror as the human ships began to glow. Energy built up along their hulls like lightning waiting to strike. But what terrified him most was the coordination. 50,000 ships moving as one. No commands being transmitted. No communication delays. They acted like parts of a single mind. The human counterattack began. It was unlike anything Zachmore had ever seen. The humans did not fire randomly or target the closest ships. Instead, they struck with surgical precision. Each Zephyrian vessel found itself under attack from exactly the right angle, with exactly the right weapons, at exactly the right moment. Zachamore's ships began to die. Not quickly in spectacular explosions, but slowly and methodically. The humans disabled engines first, then weapons, then life support. They were taking the Zephyrian fleet apart piece by piece. How are they coordinating like this? His tactical officer shouted over the alarms. I cannot detect any command signals. No communication between their ships at all. Because they do not need to communicate, said a new voice. Zachmore spun around to see a human standing on his bridge. The figure was wearing some kind of advanced armor that shimmered like liquid metal. In the confusion of battle, no one had noticed the intruder's arrival. Who are you? Zachmore demanded. How did you get aboard my ship? The human removed her helmet, revealing a young woman with calm eyes. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, Earth Defense Force. I came aboard through your garbage disposal system. You really should upgrade your internal security. That is impossible. Your shields are designed to stop large objects moving at high speed, Santos interrupted. They do not stop small objects moving slowly, or people who know how to phase shift their molecular structure. More alarms began blaring. The ship shook as human weapons found their target. You want to know how we coordinate without communication? Santos continued. We link our minds during combat. Every human ship in this fleet is part of one collective consciousness. We see what each other sees. We think as one. Zachmore stared at her. That is not possible. No species except us, Santos said. We learned how to do it 500 years ago, during the last time someone tried to invade our system. We have had 5 centuries to perfect the technique. The main screen showed the battle continuing around them. Zephyrian ships were being systematically disabled. Some tried to flee, but human vessels anticipated their escape routes and cut them off. Others attempted to fight back, but their targeting systems could not lock onto the human ships, which seemed to know exactly where every shot would be fired. You are not fighting 200 individual ships, Santos explained. You are fighting one mind controlling 50,000 bodies. Every weapon, every shield, every movement is part of a single plan. We see your tactics the moment you think of them. We counter your moves before you make them. Zachamore's flagship shuddered as its engines went offline. Through the window, he could see human boarding pods approaching his ship. Surrender now, Santos said. Your fleet is defeated. We can end this without more deaths. Zachmore looked around his bridge. Half his crew was unconscious. The other half was staring at their instruments in shock. Every system on his ship was failing. How? He whispered. Santos put her helmet back on. We learned something important 500 years ago, Commander. The universe is a dangerous place. To survive, we had to become something more than what we were. We became something new, something unified, something that could protect itself. The lights on the bridge flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The question now, Santos continued, is what we do with your fleet, and what message we send back to your empire. Zachmore had no answer. He had come to conquer a primitive world. Instead, he had found something that defied everything he thought he knew about warfare, about technology, about what was possible. As human soldiers entered his bridge, Zachmore realized that the galaxy was about to learn the same lesson he had just learned. Never underestimate humanity. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the Endurance, a massive vessel that had once been a generation ship carrying colonists to distant stars. Now it served as the flagship of Earth's defense fleet. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations, but there was no urgent chatter, no shouted orders. Everyone was connected through the neural link, sharing thoughts and information instantly. Through the collective consciousness, Sarah could see the battle from 50,000 different viewpoints. Every human ship, every defense platform, every orbital habitat was part of her extended senses. She felt their weapons charging, their shields adjusting, their engines maneuvering. They were all her, and she was all of them. The Zephyrian fleet hung in space before them like a dark cloud. 200 ships, each one bristling with weapons. Their commander had just rejected her final warning. Now they would learn why Earth had been quarantined for 5 centuries. "Begin Defensive Protocol 7, Sarah said, though the words were unnecessary. Every human in the fleet already knew what to do. The Zephyrians opened fire first, just as Sarah had known they would. Their quantum torpedoes raced toward Earth, designed to crack the planet's crust and destroy its major cities. But the weapons never reached their target. Between Earth and the attacking fleet, space suddenly came alive. Millions of small objects that had been invisible moments before revealed themselves. They were automated defense platforms, each one no larger than a fighter craft, but collectively they formed an impenetrable shield around the planet. The defense platforms moved with impossible precision. Every torpedo was intercepted. Every energy beam was deflected. The Zephyrians had brought enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, but none of it could reach Earth. Through the neural link, Sarah felt surprise and confusion from the enemy fleet. Their sensors were trying to understand how so many defense platforms could coordinate without any detectable communication signals. They did not realize that the platforms were not separate machines. They were extensions of the human collective consciousness, as much a part of Sarah as her own hands. Phase 2, Sarah thought, and 50,000 ships responded as one. The human fleet began to move. But they did not charge forward like a traditional battle formation. Instead, they flowed around the Zephyrian ships like water surrounding rocks. Some attacked from above, others from below. A few ships phased through hyperspace to appear behind the enemy formation. Others split apart into smaller craft that swarmed individual targets. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but their traditional tactics were useless against an enemy that fought like a single organism. Every time they concentrated fire on one section of the human fleet, other sections attacked from unexpected angles. When they tried to retreat, human ships were already waiting in their escape routes. Sarah could feel the panic beginning to spread through the enemy fleet. Their communications were filled with confused orders and contradictory commands. Ships collided with each other as they tried to avoid human attacks. Their formation collapsed as individual captains made desperate decisions without coordinating with their allies. The humans, meanwhile, moved with perfect unity. Sarah watched through 1,000 eyes as boarding pods launched from her ships. They were small, stealthy craft that could slip through enemy shields. Inside each pod was a team of human soldiers wearing advanced armor that could adapt to any environment. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos led one of the boarding teams. Through the neural link, Sarah experienced everything Santos saw and felt. The young officer's pod phased through the hull of a Zephyrian cruiser, like it was made of mist, advanced technology that humanity had developed during their centuries of isolation. Santos and her team moved through the enemy ship with fluid precision. They knew exactly where to go because the human ships outside had already scanned every inch of the vessel. They disabled key systems with surgical accuracy, engines, weapons, life support. Each one shut down at precisely the right moment to minimize casualties while maximizing effectiveness. The Zephyrian crew tried to fight back, but they were facing soldiers who shared a collective consciousness. When one human was attacked, all the others knew about it instantly. When one soldier learned the layout of a section, that knowledge was immediately available to everyone. The boarding teams moved like they had been planning their assault for years instead of minutes. On the bridge of the enemy flagship, Fleet Commander Zachmore stared in disbelief as his fleet was systematically dismantled. His weapons could not lock onto the human ships, which seemed to anticipate every attack. His shields were being bypassed by weapons that phased through matter. His own ship was being invaded by soldiers who appeared out of nowhere. Sarah could have ended the battle in minutes by simply destroying the entire Zephyrian fleet. Her weapons were more than capable of it, but that was not the point. The goal was not destruction, it was demonstration. The galaxy needed to understand what humanity had become, so instead of killing, the humans disabled. Instead of destroying, they captured. Each Zephyrian ship was carefully taken apart, its crew subdued but unharmed. The message was clear. We could have killed you all, but we chose not to. The battle lasted exactly 23 minutes. When it was over, 197 Zephyrian ships were disabled and drifting. 2 had been captured intact for study. 1 ship, a small courier vessel, had been deliberately allowed to escape. On board that escaping ship was Lieutenant Vexishi, the sole surviving officer from Zachmore's command staff. She had been chosen specifically for this purpose. Sarah had read her psychological profile through the collective consciousness. Vexishi was intelligent, honest, and would report exactly what she had seen without exaggeration or distortion. Through the neural link, Sarah watched the courier ship jump to hyperspace. In a few days, Vexishi would reach Zephyrian space and deliver her report. The galaxy would learn that the old warnings about Earth were not superstition or fear, they were simple fact. Sarah disconnected from the collective consciousness and became an individual again. The transition was always jarring after extended periods of unity. Suddenly, she was alone in her own mind, seeing through only 2 eyes instead of thousands. Around her, the bridge crew was doing the same. They stretched and blinked as their individual personalities reasserted themselves. During battle, they were all one mind. In peaceful times, they were separate people with their own thoughts and feelings. Damage report, Sarah said aloud, using voice communication now that the neural link was inactive. Minimal casualties on our side, her tactical officer reported. 14 wounded, 2 ships with minor hull damage. The Zephyrians lost approximately 15,000 personnel, mostly from life support failures during the boarding actions. Sarah nodded. Those casualties were regrettable but unavoidable. The Zephyrians had chosen to fight instead of surrender. Still, the human forces had tried to minimize deaths wherever possible. What about prisoners? Approximately 40,000 Zephyrian crew members are in our custody. Medical teams are treating their wounded. We have also recovered their fleet commander, Zachmore. He is requesting to speak with you. Sarah considered this. Speaking with the enemy commander would be a departure from protocol. For 500 years, humanity had maintained complete silence with the galactic community, but perhaps it was time for that to change. Bring him to conference room 7, she decided. Have security standing by, but I will meet with him alone. 30 minutes later, Sarah sat across a metal table from Fleet Commander Zachmore. The Zephyrian officer looked tired and defeated. His once proud uniform was torn and stained. His confidence had been replaced by confusion and fear. You wanted to speak with me, Sarah said. Zachmore stared at her for a long moment. What are you? He finally asked. Human, Sarah replied simply. No, Zachmore shook his head. Humans are individuals, separate minds and separate bodies. What I saw today was something else, something impossible. Sarah leaned back in her chair. 500 years ago, another fleet came to Earth. They tried to conquer us just like you did. We learned something from that experience. We learned that to survive in a hostile galaxy, we had to evolve. Into what? Into something more than the sum of our parts, Sarah said. When we face a threat, we become one mind with many bodies. We share thoughts, experiences, knowledge. We become a collective consciousness that can think and act faster than any individual species. Zachmore looked horrified. You gave up your individuality? No, Sarah smiled. We chose when to be individuals and when to be united. Right now, I am just Sarah Chen. I have my own thoughts, my own personality, my own dreams. But when Earth is threatened, I become part of something larger. We all do. Why? Zachmore whispered. Because the universe is dangerous, Sarah said. Because species like yours see us as weak and try to take what is ours. Because sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become something your enemies cannot understand or defeat. She stood up. Your ship will be allowed to leave. You will deliver a message to your empire and to the Galactic Council. Tell them that humanity is no longer hiding. Tell them what you saw here today, and tell them that if anyone else tries to attack Earth, the response will not be as gentle as what you experienced. Zachmore looked up at her. What happens now? Sarah walked to the door. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled, but no one spoke. Delegates from hundreds of species sat in stunned silence as they listened to Lieutenant Vexishi's report. Her voice shook as she described the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet, but her words were clear and precise. 200 ships, she repeated, gone in 23 minutes. They did not destroy us. They chose not to. The humans could have killed us all, but they wanted us to live. To carry this message back to you, Ambassador Veltar from the Centauri Federation was the first to break the silence. Lieutenant, you said the human ships moved as one mind. Can you explain what you mean? Vexishi's hands trembled as she accessed her report files. I have tactical recordings from our sensors. Watch the human fleet movement patterns. No communication delays, no coordination errors, perfect unity across 50,000 vessels. It is impossible unless they share a collective consciousness, finished Counselor Thane. The old Rigelian looked even more ancient than usual. Just like the old report said, the moderator spoke from the high platform. Lieutenant Vexishi, you have served the Council well by delivering this report. You may return to your quarters now. After the young Zephyrian officer left, the chamber erupted in worried voices. Representatives argued with each other in dozens of languages. Some called for immediate military action. Others demanded stronger quarantine measures. A few suggested trying to negotiate with Earth. Silence. The moderator's voice cut through the noise. We will hear from archivist Quindal first. His research into the historical files may provide guidance. Quindal stood slowly, his age showing in every movement. Honored delegates, I have spent the last week reviewing classified records from 500 years ago. What Lieutenant Vexishi described matches exactly what happened to the hegemony fleet. The humans have not changed. We simply forgot what they were capable of. He activated a holographic display showing the Sol system. The quarantine was never meant to contain human expansion. It was meant to prevent human retaliation. The species that attacked Earth 5 centuries ago disbanded their alliance within a year. They were too afraid to even speak publicly about what they had experienced. Ambassador Zelnara from the Polaris Union stood up. Archivist, what do you recommend we do now? Before Quindal could answer, the chamber's main doors opened. A figure in an unfamiliar uniform walked down the central aisle. The delegates stared in shock as they realized they were looking at a human being, the first to set foot in the council chambers in 500 years. The human was a woman of middle age, with short gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple blue uniform with no visible weapons. 2 steps behind her walked what appeared to be a diplomatic escort. Other humans in similar uniforms. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, she announced, as she reached the center of the chamber. I come representing the United Earth Federation and all human colonies throughout the galaxy. The silence was deafening. The moderator finally spoke. Admiral Chen, humanity has not participated in galactic affairs for 5 centuries. Why do you come before us now? Sarah looked around the chamber, making eye contact with delegates from dozens of different species. Because the galaxy is about to face a threat that none of you can handle alone. And because it is time for humanity to stop hiding. She activated a small device on her wrist. A holographic star map appeared above the chamber, showing the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated something moving in from the empty space beyond the galactic rim. Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking these objects for the past 50 years, Sarah explained. They are ships, but not like anything we have encountered before. The vessels are massive, some as large as small moons. They appear to be constructed from dark matter, making them nearly impossible to detect with conventional sensors. Counselor Morden leaned forward. What do they want? They consume everything, Sarah replied. Planets, stars, entire systems. We have observed them destroying solar systems in the Magellanic Clouds. They strip away all matter and energy, leaving nothing behind but empty space. The star map zoomed in to show the projected path of the approaching fleet. Every delegate in the chamber could see that the objects were heading directly toward inhabited galactic space. How long until they arrive? Asked Ambassador Veltar. 18 months, Sarah said. Maybe 24 if they stop to consume uninhabited systems along the way. The chamber erupted in panic. Delegates began shouting questions and demands. Some accused Sarah of lying. Others demanded proof. A few called for immediate evacuation of border worlds. Silence, the moderator commanded. Admiral Chen, why should we believe you? And why does humanity reveal this information now after centuries of isolation? Sarah's expression remained calm. Because we have been watching the galaxy for 500 years. We have monitored your communications, tracked your ship movements, observed your conflicts. We know about every war, every treaty, every technological advancement you have made. She paused, letting that information sink in. We also know that your current military forces cannot stop what is coming. Your fleets are designed to fight each other, not an enemy that can consume entire star systems. And humanity can stop them? Counselor Thane asked. We do not know, Sarah admitted, but we have a better chance than anyone else. We have spent 5 centuries preparing for threats like this. Our ships, our weapons, our tactics, everything has been designed around the principle of collective defense. The star map changed to show human territory. Instead of the single system that most delegates expected, they saw hundreds of star systems, connected by a vast network of hidden installations. This is impossible, whispered Ambassador Zelnara. Our surveys show those systems as uninhabited. Your surveys see what we want them to see, Sarah replied. Humanity did not stay confined to Earth. We spread throughout the galaxy, but we remained hidden. We built colonies in systems you considered worthless. We established defensive networks in empty space. We prepared for the day when someone would threaten our survival again. The implications were staggering. If the star map was accurate, humanity controlled more territory than any other species in galactic history. They had done it secretly, right under the noses of the galactic community. What do you want from us? The moderator asked. Sarah turned to face the high platform. We want to end the quarantine. We want to join the galactic community as equals, and we want to work together to defend against the approaching threat. And if we refuse, then you will face the Void Hunters alone, Sarah said. And when they have consumed your worlds and your people, they will come for Earth. At that point, we will fight them by ourselves. Counselor Morden stood up. You said you have been monitoring our communications for centuries. What else do you know about us? Sarah smiled slightly. We know about the trade wars between the Centauri Federation and the Vega Collective. We know about the territorial disputes in the Outer Rim. We know about the secret weapons research being conducted on Proxima Station. We know about everything. The chamber fell silent again. Every delegate was thinking about the implications of perfect surveillance spanning 5 centuries. How many secrets did humanity know? How many hidden weaknesses had they observed? But we have not interfered, Sarah continued. We could have prevented wars, influenced elections, manipulated markets. We chose not to. We believed that each species had the right to determine its own path, as long as they left us alone. Ambassador Veltar asked the question that everyone was thinking. What guarantee do we have that humanity will not simply conquer us all? Sarah's expression grew serious. Because conquest was never our goal. Survival was. We became what we are because the galaxy taught us that weakness leads to destruction. But we never forgot that we were once like you, individual minds seeking to understand our place in the universe. She gestured to the star map still floating above them. The approaching threat will require all of our combined strength to defeat. Humanity cannot do it alone, neither can the rest of the galaxy. But together we might have a chance. The moderator considered her words carefully. Admiral Chen, if the Council agrees to end the quarantine and recognize humanity as a galactic power, what happens next? We share our technology, Sarah replied. We teach you our tactics. We show you how to link your fleets into collective consciousness networks. And when the Void Hunters arrive, we fight them together as one unified force. And after the threat is defeated? Sarah looked around the chamber one more time. Then we build a galaxy where no species has to choose between hiding and being conquered. Where collective strength protects individual freedom. Where the lessons we learned over 5 centuries of isolation can benefit everyone. The vote took 3 hours. When it was over, the quarantine of Earth was officially ended by a margin of 734 votes to 46 as Sarah left the council chambers. She felt the weight of history on her shoulders. For 500 years, humanity had been alone in the galaxy. Now they were returning to a community that had grown far beyond what their ancestors could have imagined. The real work was just beginning. They had 18 months to unite dozens of species into a single,